Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of September 27, 2021. In terms of the stock market direction, I think that Monday is going to be an up day. Then Tuesday, the market is going to turn to down. Wednesday, I think is going to be a quite exciting day, and it's going to be an up day. And then Thursday and Friday look to me like down days. So let's go over the specific days of the week. On Monday, I think there might be increased focus on various negotiations and deals. At the same time, there may be pressure that one side may be putting on another side in those negotiations, and there may even be some manipulative behavior or some power plays and pressure from a side that is perhaps has some sort of higher status or has been around for longer, maybe somebody who is a leader or higher in the position of authority, and that larger company or somebody who is again a higher status leader, and that side may be exerting kind of a greater than usual pressure, and again therefore this negotiation process may not be seen as balanced because of this kind of inequality of power between those two sides. And so there may be unlikely that the compromise will be reached again because of this imbalance. For the US, the 27th Monday may see increased focus on topics such as military, weapons, also sports, especially more dangerous, risky ones like racing or fighting. And in general, there may be increased focus in the news on sort of risky and dangerous activities, which could be like firefighting, for example, or again, racing, also casinos, gambling, even stock market, anything that's kind of perceived to be more dangerous and risky. And let's see, and there may also be increased news on about negotiations with international partners, but again, if any such negotiations are being held on Monday, the tone may be, again, something along the lines of basically the US as a country may be more willing to take a more of an assertive tone, or engage in events or activities that involve a little bit more risk, or have greater tolerance for risky kind of activities that may, have some chance of paying off. But again, it's not going to be 100% kind of this safe approach, but again, more likely to go for something that may be seen as more risky, but may pay off down the line. For China, the 27th may see increased and positive news about either earnings or profits, or even finance, banks, and even some situations or events that may establish it or basically be positive for China in terms of how it's seen on the world arena, and something along the lines of it either having increased earnings or having some financial status, or being a leader in some financial area. So a good day in that sense for China for Monday. Or if there are some negotiations or deals that involve, again, making profit, for example, especially from long distance shipments, or some trade deals that are international, again, involve this long distance kind of trade, then again, such deals held on Monday may be more beneficial for China than would have been on other days. The 28th through 30th globally will see increased focus on various Neptunian topics, which would involve, of course, things like water, navy, but also oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, but also beverages, movies, music, religion, and things of that nature. And there, the focus, especially on Wednesday, the 29th, may be on there being sort of too much of a good thing almost. And there will be, if indeed something is, say, flowing, say there's excessive precipitation and the water just keeps flowing, and at this time it will be more likely that the water or whatever is flowing will be less likely to be stopped. So if there's maybe a shipment that's proceeding somewhere, like an oil tanker or ship is just moving through, some body of water. And at this time, again, 29th through 30th, especially the 29th, and if for some reason that needs to be stopped, like maybe it's about to run into some reef or something, it is less likely to be stopped at this time. It will be harder to stop. Or if there is indeed like this flow of water, and perhaps there's a need to put a stop to that flow because of whatever safety reasons, it will be actually harder to stop that flow at this time. And again, we could talk about flow of also oil, for example. So if there's an oil spill or a gas leak, it is harder to basically stop it because there may be an excess buildup of, say, gas, or like I said, an oil spills into water, or even again flow of water or flow of ships through the water, or flow of some chemical. Again, this could be from something negative such as pollution, which might be hard to detect, hard to stop at this time, or it could be something positive where perhaps, finally, if there's a, blockage and some ship or couldn't go through, or, something couldn't be delivered, maybe some life-saving pharmaceutical, now finally it can flow, and it can flow without restrictions. At the same time, there may be almost, like I said, too much of a good thing, especially on Wednesday, which is another reason sort of for the prediction of market going up, because it might be a very much of a kind of a time where there may be some dreams and hopes and wishes, and really almost like this rose-colored glasses kind of view, where investors and even buyers, consumers may feel like this is the time to spend on something that's luxury, something that is just more like for fun and not necessarily again as a need thing, but more like a fun, cruise, or fun, I don't know, jewelry or some fancy watch, something that perhaps people just feel like it's just for pleasure, or even go out and eat at a fancy restaurant, or just even indulge oneself. So some of the transits that we'll be experiencing again, especially on Wednesday, it have to do with again excessive spending, overspending, paying for something more than perhaps it's worth, and also specifically we'll have Venus squaring Jupiter, but also at the same time trining Neptune. And the Venus square Jupiter is actually a signature for diabetes if you talk about medical astrology. So if you think about it, there's too much sugar, too much of a good thing, right? So there may be, again, something along the lines of, if indeed, for example, in the US, there are discussions about like whether or not to, increase the debt ceiling. Indeed, around the 29th evening or early 30th, there indeed may be such a decision taken, just because, again, there's this sense of optimism, sense of things kind of really looking really good, these pastries looking super tasty, or the jewelry looking amazingly sparkly and shiny. And with the trine between Venus, money or luxury goods or something that's beautiful, and, pastry, sugar, all that stuff, with Neptune being this beautiful vision of something, dream, hope, but also could be illusion, something that, again, one really wants at that time, one, will be more likely to go for. And again, this could be from something just maybe engaging in a beautiful dining experience at the luxury restaurant, but having this beautiful celebration, or maybe if a movie comes out at that time, it may be more successful than perhaps at other times. So things like that may be seen as more valuable, but at the same time, there may be a tendency to overspend and overindulge at the same time. And when it comes again to oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, there may be, again, news of those related businesses or products either being bringing more profit than usual, being kind of valued higher than usual. So the price of oil, for example, I think may go up right leading or around the 28th, and I think it may peak and reverse back to down around the 30th of September specifically. But other things along the lines of, again, movies, beverages, especially alcoholic beverages, pharmaceuticals, especially those that are perhaps fighting, specifically used to fight diabetes or addictions. Those may also go up in price or be seen as of greater value, not necessarily because of their price, but value meaning maybe they're seen as more helpful to address something, for whatever reason. At that time, there may be more focus in the news on their value and sort of how helpful something like that is. Again, or there could be just excess because, again, something spills or gas leaks, and something that just kind of blows out of proportion, but again, it may be hard to sort of put a lid on it at this exact time. So as I mentioned, the 29th, Wednesday may see an market going up, but again on this hope and optimism. But then on the 30th, on Thursday, the mood may be a little bit more kind of critical. So still obviously, I think, hopeful mood, but a little bit more critical as far as like less hype, more kind of critical thinking or even arguments. And so I think Thursday morning, even pre-open and the early morning, there may be more market volatility than usual. And direction on Thursday, I think, will change from Wednesday. I think Wednesday will be up, Thursday down. But either way, I think Wednesday, Thursday, we'll see a flip-flop in direction. For the US, 30th of September through October 3rd, may see increased possibility of various arguments or some disagreements or verbal conflicts related to things like earnings, banks, finance, currency value, debt, loans, rates, taxes, insurance, and things of that nature. And also other things that may be in the news for the US have to do with things like police, prisons, mining, and education. So about these areas, again, for the US specifically, 30th through the 3rd, may see some either just increased news or arguments, perhaps arguments about what should be done or how to proceed, maybe how to balance something, how to reach a balanced decision. So there might be this kind of evaluation, pros and cons at that time. And the solution at this time may actually, something that actually, if there's indeed an argument about something, the solution may be seen as in starting something new, a new leader, like appointing a new leader to oversee something, starting a new project, maybe if there is no way to agree on something that exists, because again, it's hard to balance something at this time. The solution may be seen as, okay, let's scrap it and let's do this thing all over again, like the new position, like I said, the new way of doing something. And that's where the or appointing somebody who, like I said, new leader, but also somebody who's more like a decisive, almost more aggressive, if not military kind of a person, or somebody who's like a very competitive, like an athlete, somebody who's really driven and is able to exert a lot of energy. So again, the solution to this kind of a perhaps difficult communication about balancing something may be found in either appointing a new leader, starting a new project, or doing things again in a new kind of a way, like maybe starting sort of over. And also another sort of theme, maybe the project that may be started at that time that again may be successful or approved or seen as actually worth, continuing, may have to do with securing food or shelter for vulnerable segments of the population, increasing some domestic capacity. So again, it could be something like growing more food domestically, or developing land, or securing shelter, like some real estate again for those especially who are more in need of being protected, like some vulnerable populations. Farming, food production, again, that may be seen as kind of worth starting a new project or appointing a new leader to oversee those kind of areas specifically to develop domestic capacity. And then Friday, maybe sometime by the Friday afternoon, that kind of excitement from especially Wednesday and somewhat Thursday will start wearing off, and Friday I think the market will again go down. So now let's talk about a little bit of a background influences, which specifically seem to be affecting the charts of US and China. I'm sure there are other countries too. It's just that those are the two that the horoscopes for these two countries I primarily check when I look at transits. So the transits that are ongoing and will be important from 2021 through about 2023 for both US and China are as follows. For the US, through about March of 2022 and especially April through September of 21, and then picking back up February and March of 2022, and especially in next year, late February, early March, there might be increased focus on oil and gas industries, and in that area there might be some major developments where either new projects may be started, for example, some laying underwater, sea cable or underwater like pipeline, or obviously some pipelines were shut off, but there may still be new projects that, again, are not necessarily about shutting things down, but rather changing how things function. And those have to do with various Neptunian areas. So again, oil and gas, but also pharmaceuticals, maybe how something is produced, or how, say, Navy or ships, how something is delivered. Of course, there's just this AUKUS signed, I guess, the trilateral agreement with UK and Australia. So that, I suppose, could be one area, but other projects may involve preparation for, say, preventing soil erosion due to like water, or dealing with some water pollution contamination by, say, cleaning certain bodies of water, or dealing with excessive precipitation by perhaps building like improved levees or something like that, or improving the structural, integrity of some dams. So any projects that relate to like Neptune, again, this could be oil, gas, but also pharmaceuticals, chemicals, any water related, underwater, over water, through water. Water itself, maybe building some plant that cleanses the water, or like a plant that maybe produces some beverages or something like that. There may be basically major changes in those areas where, indeed, some projects may stop or be restructured, repurposed, but there may also be new projects in those areas that may begin at this time. And that's, like I said, through March of 2022, where there may be some major changes in how those industries function. And this is not a passing influence where things indeed at this time that, again, either new businesses that start at this time or businesses that are restructured, those changes may last for decades. At the same time, there may also be increased news about sort of problems in those areas where, again, problems with chemical pollution or pollution from oil, or excessive precipitation bringing some damages, and that globally will actually be a theme for next spring in general, and I'll get into that in a little bit. Let's see, then another important time period for the US had started at the end of August and will proceed through the end of February of 2022, and that has to do with some military or sports or weapons, any projects that are involving something that's involves competition. Again, this could be in the military, it could be sports related. Those areas may see some either confusion or some disagreements with international partners, or indeed there might be agreements. However, it might either be something along the lines of there just being miscommunication due to, again, not necessarily intentional, but just confusion where there's just too much, fog and unclarity or lack of clarity, and things just get lost because, again, there is miscommunication, or just some assessment tool doesn't quite work, or something is not guided in the right direction. And that kind of influence of sort of, imagine being in the fog and you're maybe your intentions are right and you're doing things correctly per whatever procedures, but things are in a fog, so obviously you can see very clearly. So, things are appearing, not exactly as they are, distorted. So there's distorted information, miscommunication, lies, deception. So the sources are not reliable. There is some unseen threat, maybe through spying or hacking, or maybe the threat is not real, but again, things just going to seem different than they perhaps actually are. And so that continues through about the end of February of next year. And because of that, obviously, things may just kind of not function as well. Be it agreements or actual projects may not go as well because, again, of that kind of a general sense of confusion and uncertainty. At the same time, as we just saw, there is this deal that US just entered into with Australia and UK, and that has to do with those nuclear submarines. And submarines, of course, have to do with water. In fact, they go underwater. That's what they usually do. And so that's kind of, I guess that's an area where might in fact also be highlighted. Anything to do with Navy, also other Neptunian areas. It could be same chemicals or using any chemical weapons, or again, anything that moves through and with water, or uses water for, say, fuel, or uses water for whatever reason, cooling off. Anything that basically related to Neptune would also be a strong theme through about February of next year. And such project, actually, the more they actually focus on water and chemicals and even pharmaceuticals, the more they actually can be successful, because that area would be strongly highlighted. Again, there's still possibility of confusion or say an oil spill or a maritime accident, and so that definitely needs to be very closely monitored. At the same time, the general theme of Navy may be prominent for the US through next spring. And also in terms of like sports and athletes, again, anything to do with like competitions that involve, say, I don't know, swimming or whatever, using some canoes or something, rowing or whatever. However, there may also be a theme where if indeed there's some misuse of some chemicals or pharmaceuticals, that may also come up, some doping, I guess what I'm trying to say, that may also come up, and then again, that may be a theme through the end of February of next year for the US. Another important influence for the US that has also started from about August of 2021 will continue through February of 2024, and that has to do with also some miscommunication that relates to, like, again, leadership, or in the Navy, not Navy, but leadership in the military, but also leadership when it comes to sports, either famous athletes or some leaders that are perhaps have made decision about how, say, sports should proceed, but also leaders in the stock market or any sort of important individuals or companies that maybe are, say, owners of casinos, for example, or companies that have to do with, like, arranging, athletic events that involve like fighting or racing. Those areas may also be in the news, or there may be some important developments in the US through about February actually of 2024. And there too may be either some concerns about some of the either confusion about how those areas will develop, or there may be access of something where again, if there is some deceptive activities going on, it may kind of run rampant at this time. So maybe again, if there's like some leak of some chemical, it may be hidden, or if some doping or something is happening, it may be hidden, but may kind of be allowed to continue on. Or it could be just confusion as far as like how to proceed, like should we be holding our events like so or in some other manner. And that, again, that's kind of a sense of either confusion or misuse or of say a pharmaceutical, or misuse of chemical, or just kind of how to do things that may continue through February of 2024. And another area that will be important for the US is real estate, banks, farming, and land development. And there may be also this ongoing sense of either some confusion about, say, what is valuable, what is not, which bank indeed is sort of stable and has good stable assets, which one maybe has a lot of like these underwater mortgages, or what should be the real, value of particular piece of land. And that may not be necessarily because of real estate, but because of, say, oil development on that land, or with how that land is, whether or not that land is, say, contaminated, or there is some water erosion happening there, or it's literally underwater due to some flooding. Those are going to be the themes strong for the US, strong themes for the US through February of 2024. And like I said, particularly this upcoming winter and spring globally, but I think specifically also for the US, there might be increased focus on flooding. And of course, major flooding can do damage to real estate, but also to, say, farmlands. Things may get contaminated. And so again, this may affect indirectly, of course, banks or whoever is, giving loans, for example, to, say, farmers, etc. Those things may be related. And for the US, it might continue this kind of theme through February of 2024. There may be, in addition to, say, contamination of land due to, say, flooding, there may be also some policy that affect like how fertilizers are used, or how, say, if there's, I don't know, fracking or something to do with basically anything that may bring pollution, be it again through some natural events or through just improper practices. Unfortunately, there's a greater probability of some contamination coming basically to large areas of land, pollution, or something to do with like vermin, or something that basically, again, it's either literally water or chemical or oil that flows and contaminates things, or is just practices such that lead to things just becoming kind of dirty, vermin, trash. And again, this could be, let's say there's flood, and flood brings a lot of stuff with it, or brings things from the ground that seeps to the surface. And again, there's this concern perhaps subsequently, again, this is going to be continuing through February of 2024 about, safety of whatever is being produced on contaminated farmland, for example. Or if there's some damage to real estate, of course, it may affect banks, or it may affect landowners or property owners. And again, therefore, there may be confusion about what is or isn't valuable, and what is or isn't kind of safe, and what is or isn't contaminated. So that's, again, a slowly unfolding transit that currently is happening for the US. Also, another important transit that US sort of already started to experience, and this will continue also through 2023, is the what's called the Pluto return, where it's coming back to the position where it was when US was founded. And at the same time, it will also be the Pluto is also going to be making a difficult transit to Mercury in the US chart, and that has Mercury is in the 8th house of like rates, investments, loans, and it rules 7th and 10th house that have to do with like partnerships, international relations, and status in the world arena. And Pluto in the US chart is also in the 2nd house, which has to do with money and finance, yet again, earnings. And of course, it also rules things like just power. Pluto has to do with power, and it's power structures, power plants, energy, things of that nature, and also mining, anything that's like hidden underground. And again, not necessarily hidden, but it just happens to be underground. So mining areas, or excavation of anything, or like underground storage, but also could be secrets and scandals. That's something that's intentionally hidden, and perhaps those are the areas that will be strongly kind of in focus for the US in 22 and 23, and especially 2022. So there may be a lot of restructuring, and Pluto basically is a planet of birth and rebirth, I guess, death and birth, whatever, regeneration. So some things that perhaps previously weren't functioning very well, maybe some power structure, or like police reform, or some things that are seen as basically having too much power, or misuse of power, improper use of power. And again, this could be due to suspected contamination. Maybe there's like a buried, trash of some sort, and things are just decaying underground. And so far, like things were just kind of being, not addressed. At this time, anything that's like hidden underground and is a problem, basically will more likely surface. And again, could be related to the floods, who knows. Either way, it might be more likely to surface, and therefore it will have to be addressed. And Pluto is a planet that's typically, at least astrologically, seen as very like radical, meaning that it really first, everything just needs to be discarded, and then we can renew all over again. So, or the birth of something new. So it's a cycle. So it's not all good or bad, but definitely things that seem to be outlived, improperly functioning, or if something was maybe buried, and again, like there's trash, or it's decaying, or it's buried in the wrong place, and maybe causing some environmental concerns, it will be more likely now basically dug up. That whole site may be closed, and a new site somewhere else may be opened, and things can be reburied somewhere else. Or if there's like a nuclear power plant that is really old and it's not functioning very well, at this time is when it may be shut down permanently, but at the same time, some new energy source may be also discovered or implemented, and new type of plants, for example, that generate energy in some new manner may also begin to kind of open. So a new cycle where how things were functioning before will end, and new ways of doing these similar things may come up again. This could be mining, it could be anything that's buried, again, be it literally or figuratively speaking, or it could be, again, power structure, but also power that comes, again, because of the US's Pluto being in the 2nd house of money. It could be power that comes from sort of money, but also 2nd house has to do with values. And so we can see a rebirth and regeneration in terms of like what is valuable. It could be literally from like this bank, maybe it was seen as valuable before, and suddenly now a different bank that maybe previously was not really much known becomes valuable, and the first bank that was established and valuable for a long time suddenly loses its appeal for the investors. Or it could be values in terms of what nation or people find valuable. Certain things that perhaps were seen as valuable, like maybe owning, I don't know, a fancy pair of jeans or whatever it might be, is now seen as less valuable than having, I don't know, aquarium or something at your home. Suddenly it's like a new I'm simplifying things, of course, but I'm saying something that may be seen like whatever we see in the ads that's being promoted as, oh, it's cool to have that. Suddenly it may be something else that's promoted. No, now it's really cool to have something else, or be something else, or I don't know, have some sort of skills. So things in terms of just values can really change a lot. And as I mentioned, there's also a transit of Pluto to Mercury, and Mercury has to do with trade, agreements, and also, of course, education, young people, and communication, commerce, and so those general areas. And also Pluto also has to do with like police, and again power is in power structure, so leaders may change. There may be a police reform, or reforms that have to do with power plants, even mining, like I said. And Mercury again may see some changes in how, for example, the education, I wouldn't say structured, but maybe the kids will go to school in this more of a hybrid way, part from home, part in person. So definitely some changes there, or even just how the education functions, but also has to do with, like I said, commerce, even the transportation, especially short distance transportation, such as by cars, for example. So those areas may also undergo some death and rebirth, meaning maybe all those deliveries of packages or whatever may see some really kind of innovative restructuring, where the old ways of how people say were commuting may change, or how things were previously delivered. Maybe it will be through drones, who knows, but it could be something where the old ways of doing things in those areas may be kind of shut down, or they just naturally will die off because they are no longer useful, and new innovative approaches may emerge that will be, again, something just like a new sort of generation of doing things, maybe, like I said, drone deliveries as opposed to a big truck pulling to your driveway. And let's see, and also specifically going into the 2023, in the summer and fall of that year for the US, there may be some difficult transits occurring, and I guess globally as well, but for the US in particular. And so there may be some either industrial accidents or some disasters along the lines of like fires, plane crashes, shipwrecks, or just bad weather with some severe storms that obviously can cause some damage. Earthquakes, violent attacks of some sort, maybe like protests. So basically just some sort of disastrous kind of events, again, be it natural or man-made, and that's summer and fall of 2023. Let's see, and then for China this year, time from about August of 2021 through about March of 2023, in particular periods are from, again, August, October of 21, April, May 22, and then December of 22 to March of 2023. There may be some increased focus on sort of international deals or international partnerships, relations, and especially those that involve, again, either military or sports or some sort of competition. Could be friendly competition, could be more kind of tensions and difficulties, I guess, with partners. And there may be some news about surprising deals or surprising agreements or surprising kind of leadership changes, or again surprising partners that may be be brought on board or discarded perhaps. There may also be some surprising changes along the same lines where it comes to, say, sports, and there may be some either changes or innovations where, again, a new way of doing something may be proposed. But there also may be some increased probability of like accidents or some problems. And again, this could be a sudden kind of surprising situation, like due to some fires or explosions or some abrupt, again, sudden surprising situations where, again, a new agreement is entered into and suddenly it's canceled, or a new partner is brought on board and suddenly dropped, or a new leader is appointed and again, the leader then suddenly disappears or just is demoted or removed. So some surprising, unexpected, suddenly developing but also abruptly ending activities along the lines of, again, partnerships or deals, and particularly involving military, sports, or any sort of competitive, I guess, situations. So now, in terms of the sort of preview of the upcoming events for the rest of this year, October through December, in pretty much next week, so October 4th through the 12th, especially 6th through the 9th of October, may see in China, again, some focus on topics like debt, loans, the taxes, tariffs, value of currency, things of that nature. Some sort of, there might be some concerns about either deceptive activities or confusing activities that are hard to trace, or the origin is difficult to trace, or something that, again, is just happening in the background, and again, it's hard to trace exactly what is happening, but there may be some concerns there. And also there may be problems related to like other Neptunian areas, such as like floods, chemicals, pollution, oil, gas, even infectious diseases, navy, some maritime accidents, or it could be, again, related to things like fires or infections, something that's like inflamed, heat and water. So it could be some either outbreak of infectious disease that have to do with like inflammation or just basically body overheating, or it could be a fire in a ship, an accident that involves like oil, perhaps oil and gas, but also an explosion or fire, or some problems with, again, maritime shipment, maybe like an accident, like I said, or a vessel is attacked, for example, or there's some just heated arguments about the shipping route, for example, or I guess tensions around all these bodies of water, but something that basically is Neptunian in nature, but also involves this heated kind of situation, heated either literally because of there's like a fire, or heated because of some heated discussions or arguments. And in particular, around the 8th through the 10th of October, this coming, I guess, later this month, or next month, I should say, there may be also important announcements related to finance, and again, along the lines of debt, rates, loans, debt, taxes, but also construction. So I'm thinking this Evergrande maybe will come up again, but also, again, navy, maritime shipments, floods, pollution, oil, gas, and pharmaceuticals. So there may be some important announcements in those areas that may affect large numbers of people or involve large areas, or it could be also made at some large gathering, like if there's some sort of conference, for example. And the announcements, the nature of the announcements may be that there is some quick, decisive decision is about to be made, or some swift action is going to follow. And those decisive, quick actions that are maybe like aggressively stopping something or aggressively promoting something, or basically maybe appointing a leader who is very decisive and is going to do something about the situation, that might be the nature of the announcements. And again, this might affect large numbers of people and have widespread effect. Then globally, 18th through the 24th of October, and especially the 22nd and 23rd, may see a little bit of a tense time where there may be increased probability of any sort of major earthquakes, situations that are like involve protests, just kind of even people reacting more negatively and violently to what they may perceive as oppression, or again, there could be a natural disaster, or like I said, an earthquake or something collapsing, exploding, like maybe a rock slide, or something like a mining accident where explosion is underground or fires underground, and therefore again there may be a building or structure or mine may collapse, and or there may be concerns about some sort of underground storage, nuclear power, spying, hacking, or any sort of secret underground, in quote, activities. Perhaps, like some smuggling of something, again, through some underground tunnel. Then in November, the 8th through 19th of November probably will be important times. That's all. We have some more transits between Mars and Saturn and Uranus, difficult transits. First to Saturn, then to Uranus, and basically that may also coincide with either a large earthquake, accidents, tensions, and in terms of like markets, there might be increased focus on metals like steel and iron in particular. There might be some either conflicts about, say, availability of those, I guess, commodities, or some shortage, or some tariffs, or some arguments about either construction that involves those materials, or just even delivery of those materials. And there might be some, that will be in, I guess, the week of the November 8th, and then the week of the 15th of November, there may be some perhaps related to the previous week, or perhaps independent, some concerns related to like airplanes, power outages, airspace developments, and again, more likely along the lines of some tensions, or if a project, for example, succeeds, it just may go through some stage of where there may be some, again, problems or frictions, or things first they don't work out. Maybe if there's a launch planned, maybe first there's a power outage or service outage, things have to be suddenly postponed, but then maybe they will, proceed fine. But initially there may be some turbulations there. Again, there could be power outages or service outages for any sort of digital delivery of any goods. Could be like online shopping, or like a finance, like some sort of a financial service that is, again, enables sending money online, for example. Cryptocurrencies may also experience greater volatility the week of the 15th of November, and also for crypto, but also forex trading, all of those areas that have to do with, again, finance and sort of digitally thinking, either digital money or cryptocurrencies, or fintech, anything to do with, sending money online. All of those areas may experience some either not experience concerns, but rather maybe concerns about those areas, about their stability, about volatility, or there may be service or power outages in those areas. Or there may be some surprising announcements, and those can bring some anxiety to investors. They may be exciting to some, but I think more likely anxious than exciting. And it could involve either some new rule or law, perhaps affecting international trade, but also, like I said, airlines, electric power, electric batteries, electric cars, even social media platforms, which it reminds me that last week indeed we had some announcements out of China last Friday about basically how they don't really accept, that they think that cryptocurrencies shouldn't be used the same way as regular currencies, and therefore the Bitcoin dropped, I think, quite a bit, like I think maybe I want to say 10% or something for the last week or something along those lines. But basically makes me think that there could be something along the same lines, some sort of announcements. That's the week of the 15th of November, where there may be some, again, it may not be just for the cryptocurrencies, it could be for other digital ways of, paying for something. Also airlines and other, electric cars, electric anything, gadgets. But specifically for cryptocurrencies, the week of 15th of November looks kind of more volatile than usual. Then in December, as I mentioned previously multiple times, mid of December, the 15th, again, plus minus a few days, seem to be quite an important date globally as well as for the US. So globally, the influence may be along the lines of, again, some difficult weather situations, or some disasters, large earthquake, something collapsing like a large, mudslide, rock slide, something that's at the top that falls down. It could be even airplane crash. For the US, there may be some new developments along the lines of financial policies being discussed, or some news about rates, currency value, and also at the same time, I think gold and silver may jump around the 15th of December. And for the year, I think this may be the biggest almost event for those areas. However, after that, I think they may, at least for the following few weeks, they may gold and silver may go down. So the 15th seemed to be an important day for both US and globally. So now let's just give a very quick overview of the upcoming events for the 2022, particularly winter and summer, and the bigger, I guess, and more important transit there is the Jupiter going to be going back into Pisces right on the 29th of December, and will stay there through May of 2022. And I think it will coincide with increase in the value of or amount of things that are related to Neptune, because of course those two planets will also be, Neptune is also in Pisces, and Jupiter and Neptune will also conjunct in the spring. So there may be an abundance of water, abundance of, again, precipitation. There may be major blizzards and floods, especially around the 4th of April. And at the same time, we may see increase in gas and oil prices, increase in value of various pharmaceuticals, chemicals, but also there may be just increased news about anything to do with, say, Navy and ships and maritime transportation and oil and gas transportation, beverages, music, movies. So on the one hand, we may have more of these actual, I guess, projects happening. Maybe there will be increased news about some new movie service, for example, or new, I don't know, cruise ships or something like that. At the same time, so those areas may actually profit more because, again, there will be more of them, but also they will be seen as more valuable. However, at the same time, there may be, again, too much of something where, again, too much precipitation, or perhaps too many chemicals are flooding something. Maybe there's an oil spill, or there are too many like oil tankers congregated in some areas, which again may unfortunately due to weather lead to an oil spill, but also it could be just almost there's too much, things may become just overabundant, and that would probably happen by sometime spring of next year, by around, like I said, April especially. And at that time, obviously, oil prices, for example, or gas prices may peak, and after, I would say, probably starting May or so, they may start going down. But I think until then, from late December of 2021 through especially April of 2022, especially early April, I think there may be a buildup in oil prices and value of these, like I said, various chemicals, etc. But once they peak, I think maybe perhaps starting in May sometime, middle to late May of 2022, their prices may start going down. And let's see, and then also next year, again, for globally and for the US in particular, I think there might be strong probability of floods, and especially, let's say, March and April. But for China, it will continue into even the spring and summer of 2022, and especially July and August is maybe the time for China where those kind of flood probability may peak, and there may be associated losses. And also globally, August 1st of 2022 seems like an important date where there may be, again, a bad weather event. Of course, in the US, this is a hurricane season, but it could be, again, anywhere in the world. Could be like an industrial disaster, like an airplane or something that's flying, excessive speeds. Again, it could be a hurricane, or it could be some object that's flying through the air, again, like an airplane, that maybe there's some an explosion or excessive speed, or a bad lightning storm, and unfortunately there may be a large accident there. Or it could be, again, an industrial accident where, again, something that just reaches excessive speed and is just kind of gets out of control. At the same time, around the 1st of August of next year, there may be some volatility, again, related to cryptocurrencies, banks, financial institutions, where something that's shocking and disruptive, suddenly something is closing, maybe like some bank, or perhaps there's a fire or power outage, fire, or some sort of disruption in the functionality of either a particular, say, business that deals with, maybe they're providing services for trading cryptocurrencies, or there's some sudden power surge, and again, the business has to close for at least a few days, or there's like maybe a construction project, maybe like a building, for example, that's under construction or under repair, that has some sort of fire accident or electric problem, for example, and at the same time it could be like a construction site or some area where again maybe their fertilizers are stored. So it could be like a farming, you know, location where basically suddenly that material catches fire and leads to like this damage and problems with food production, for example, because again some area is basically damaged. And let's see, and finally I guess we're getting a little bit more towards the later part of 2022, but worth mentioning that mid-September through late October of 2022, and especially around October 11th, may also be the final passage between Saturn, final tight square between Saturn and Uranus, where it will also be accompanied in parallel. There will be happening square between Mars with Moon, will be squaring Neptune right around the 11th, I guess maybe I would say 7th through the 15th of October of 2022, where again there might be some difficult times along the lines of like a maritime, some sort of an accident, or some market may go down, and there might be some problems with oil or gas. Again, could be due to a spill, could be problems with shipments. It could be again due to an attack maybe on a ship, like some pirate attack or something like that, or it could be just really bad weather and so the shipments are halted, or like a maritime, like I said, a disaster involving like oil spill or some contamination or gas leak. And again, there may be increased probability of a large market drop, and that's for October of next year, between, like I said, around the October 11th, plus minus a few days. So definitely next year seems to be fairly interesting and important for both US, because US will be going quite like in the middle of its Pluto return, but also there are quite a few dates next year that will see difficult transits, and specifically transit that will involve nodes of the moon, which typically coincide with more major events like weather events, public events that affect large number of people, some notable I would say disasters, but notable also changes, maybe some new laws or something that again changes sort of how things function. So that's definitely something to look out for next year. I'll be putting out some predictions in the upcoming months for the next year, but these are some previews for now. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll come back and check me out next time. Until then, have a fantastic week, everyone. Bye.